Hey, what's up? Silas here. In this video I'm going to be talking about how different things happen for the same reasons, which is an ongoing theme of mine. In this case, language. The words we use and the different reactions or definitions or understandings that people get from what we use, and why it's important to talk about these things. And to do this, I'm going to tie in Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada. I'm going to tie in the Pokot tribe that lives in the northeastern region, I think northwestern region of Uganda, the northeastern region of Kenya. And I'm going to tie in this horrible case that some of you may have or may have not have heard of, with this doctor from the USA women's gymnastics team. There's an ongoing case of him having sexually harassed or sexually assaulted, I think, over 100 young gymnasts. So let's get into the video. First, I'm going to begin with Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, and his ongoing attempt to go down as the most feminist thing to have ever existed in history. Or, okay, the most feminist leader. No, at least, not even history, her story. The most feminist leader to have ever gone down in her story. Just check out this clip.
We have received the Queen's Award in the UK. We have received I have a question.
Question.
Yes, we have received many awards throughout the whole world. However, unfortunately in Canada, our volunteering as a charitable religious organization is extremely difficult. Extremely. That's why in actuality we cannot do free volunteering to help our neighbors in need as we truly desire. So that's why we came here today to ask you to also look into the policies that religious charitable organizations have in our legislation so that it can also be changed, because maternal love is the love that's going to change the future of mankind. So we'd like you to look into
we
that.
like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind, because
yeah.
it's more inclusive.
There we go, exactly. Yes, thank you.
We can all learn from each other.
So as you can see in this clip, this is a lady up there talking to Justin Trudeau. She was asking him questions about, I think, her religious charity organization. I read some stories saying they were having some issues due to some of their practices. I think their stances on possibly reproductive rights and things like that, or their beliefs towards that. But they were having some struggle being noticed by the Canadian government as a religious charity. Yet they said it's happened in other countries. It's been good to go there. But she asked specifically about, he mentions motherhood. And then this lady goes on and says, motherhood is going to be a positive for all mankind. And then Justin Trudeau steps in and says, oh, we say people kind. It's more inclusive. And then people clap and ha 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 ha, it's so cute. Justin Trudeau, people kind, yes, inclusivity, yes, everything is cool, everything is all right, everything is ours. But I'm arguing that this is part of the dehumanization of what it is to be a woman. And according to Justin Trudeau, it would be the dehumanization of what it is to be a dehumanization of what it is to be a wool people. So you also notice that he doesn't go and correct and say something like, when she mentions motherhood, he doesn't go and correct and say, no, we don't say motherhood here, we say parenthood, because that's more inclusive. No, they don't use it then. But in situations when you're talking about the negative effects of single parenthood, people will often say, well, the man, how about the man there? Oh, there's also single parents that are male. We need to put that, we need to stop making it so gender specific when we're talking about single parenthood. So no, that's double standards. That's another video. There will be another video coming soon about that exact topic, because I just saw it. This is not. Okay, so sorry. I had some cringe moment there just thinking about this. It said like 77.3% of people in the non-immigrant African family, black families in the United States of America have legitimate births. Means it's this terrible situation. But anyway, back to the dehumanization, dehumanization of what it is to be a wool people. I think this is kind of part of this, the anthropomorphization of humans, especially women, trying to take away what makes them unique and things like that. And you think about this kind of situation, this is not just, oh, it's a gender-based thing. Because you look at it with dogs. Okay, so if a bunch of dogs were chasing you down the road or something, you don't go out and say it was 3 dogs, and I guess in that situation with dogs, the male dogs are just called dogs. You wouldn't say it's 3 dogs and 2 bitches. The female dogs are bitches. And then when you see like a herd of cows, you don't say, oh, okay, some people say cattle, specifically cattle, I guess that's a people equivalent. But if you say like, yeah, there's a bunch of cows there at this farm that I went to, you don't necessarily go and say, oh yes, there was 10 cows and 5 bulls. You just say cows. So people just have these certain generalizations that people use to use words, to just use group identification of things like mankind. What if you said, oh, we say humankind? What if you said that instead? Instead of saying, oh, we say people kind. Just say we say humankind. That kind of makes more sense. Anyway, he said it was more of a joke, but I think there is something, this aspect where we kind of go in and we say, okay, we're going to adjust these things for the betterment of women. And is it really the betterment of women? And now, if a society was truly patriarchal, would we be making these exceptions for women? So why I'm saying there's a sort of de-anthropomorphization here is because when you anthropomorphize something, you put human characteristics onto something that is not necessarily human, be it the weather, be it animals, be it different storylines, different kind of things that don't really have these things. You put certain behavioral aspects on them, certain traits, certain intentions. Yet with this, I think they're kind of denying the aspects that make women women and make men men, or trying to say, oh, we're all the same in these situations. Yet there's also other situations where they will clearly say, oh, it's different when it's a woman. But if you just had this general idea of saying, oh, it's just humankind, people kind, if you just said it was just people instead of this is a woman's issue, then what exactly are you going to do? If you're indicating that, oh, I'm a feminist because women are actually being hurt in the world, then why are you making this distinction? If women aren't different than men, if you need to be more inclusive, why aren't you just an egalitarian? And again, I'm not a fan of egalitarianism. I think this is it's a pipe dream. What do you mean everything should be equal? I don't think it's even if it was possible, I don't think you'd actually like those results if everything actually was equal. So Justin Trudeau has since then apologized, said he was making a joke that wasn't taken too well, but it's probably going to be a different reaction to how this joke is taken from Justin Trudeau, from the media and other people, versus a joke that, let's say, Donald J. Trump said when he said about the emails, during the email scandal during, I think, the campaign. Yeah, during the campaign running against Hillary Clinton, he said something like, oh yeah, if anyone in Russia has those emails, this is paraphrasing, then they should find them and let us know about them. The press here will be very thankful. First of all, we know it's a joke because, first of all, I doubt the press would be happy that they actually get it. But there was one article in particular, and I'm sure many others, that were like, that's not a joke. He's actually telling Putin to interfere with our government. This is horrible. This is not something a candidate should do. But when it comes to a prime minister of Canada, it's like, yeah, he's cute, he's pretty, he's the most feminist thing to ever go down in history. We're going to give him a pass. So, moving on, we're going to talk about the Pokot tribe. At least I'm going to talk about the Pokot tribe, and you're going to listen. But the Pokot tribe is this tribe that's in both Kenya and Uganda. They were talking about specifically this different groups of the tribe, different villages of the tribe that are in Uganda. Because in Uganda, female genital mutilation has been illegal since the mid-2000s. I think they said 2007. I could be wrong. But it's at least over 10 years now. But some of the UN agencies that were involved in different concerns in the area, helping women and men and different tribes and things like that, mostly women and children, they were in there and they said that some women, they're afraid that some of the women in the tribe are still under the cover, behind the laws, going in and engaging in this female circumcision. Now, part of the reason that they do it, the tribal culture is that when a girl becomes 12, she undergoes this circumcision in order to become a woman. And then not going through this circumcision actually ends up dropping the bride price that these women can then demand from their potential husbands. So there's that issue, there's the economic issue. They're like, look, if we can't circumcise our girls, they're not going to be as marriageable, so we still want to do it. And they talked about how part of the reason they actually did it culturally was they thought there was some kind of demons, that this actually keeps demons away from the girl. It's supposed to lessen her sexual fervor when the males who are usually out tending the cattle or doing other things. The way I think they're pastoral or nomadic tribes, so the males spend a lot of time outside of the home, and they had this thing to kind of tamp down the sexuality of the females as they wait for their husbands to come back in. So some important things about this, I think some interesting things about this was, first of all, the use that I was encouraged to hear that, hey, they're actually calling it circumcision here. And it's different, I think, here in Kenya. I think you'd hardly ever hear in the West, at least in the United States of America, I've hardly ever heard them talk about what this practice that goes on in different cultures in some places as circumcision when it comes to women, when it comes to females, when it comes to girls. Yet when it comes to boys, they're like, ah, it's circumcision. But if you treated it the same, if you were more inclusive, as Justin Trudeau wants us to be, wouldn't you both call it child genital mutilation and or call both of it circumcision? Because I'm sure people in the tribe themselves, they don't consider it female genital mutilation. So if you want to be respectful of the language or the culture of other people, why don't you call it what those people are calling it and just say, yeah, if they want to do it, let them do it. But no, people on the left, people understand that there's different cultures, there's different values, there's certain things that we don't want to be done, or there's certain things we consider preferential to others, and we'll call it that way. That's why one is called female genital mutilation and one is called circumcision, because they're lessening the actual effect of it. And you also can't find any culture out there that does go through with female genital mutilation but doesn't do it with male genital mutilation. It's either some, like the United States of America, do it to just boys, just males, or they do it to both. So that's it on that one. What exactly is the reason to call one female genital mutilation and to call one circumcision? What is the importance of the words that are used, and what is the imagery, what is the understanding that those words actually evoke in what you're saying? So language is very important, and I think it's something that a lot of people are kind of forgetting. Now, moving on to how males are treated, we're going to talk about male aggression, or just aggression in general, and kind of the toxic masculinity that comes out of that. So for that, I'm going to read this excerpt from an article about something that happened at the court case of this doctor that was charged with, as I said, over 150 cases of sexual abuse to people that were under his power. A father who had 3 daughters assaulted by Larry Nassar charged the former sports doctor in a Michigan court on Friday during a sentence hearing. The man, Randall Margraves, asked Judge Janice Cunningham if he could have 1 minute alone with Nassar, whom he called a demon. I would ask you, as part of the sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes alone with this demon, Margraves said. Would you give me 1 minute? Cunningham denied the request, telling Margraves, that's not how our legal system works. The father then said aloud, well, I'm going to have to, and then began running towards Nassar, the former doctor of the U.S. Gymnastics and Michigan State University. Court bailiffs then tackled Margraves, who was heard shouting, give me 1 minute with that bastard! So right here, the way the father acted, well, first, I think it kind of, cases like this make sense to me, because I can understand why people focus on microaggressions and things like, oh, I had a date with somebody and I regretted it, and now I feel outraged and I have to write about this and shame this person, or this Me Too hashtag type things that people are jumping onto things like this, rather than focusing on these cases where this is toxic masculinity, what this doctor did. I think there's something about his nature, not necessarily his male nature specific, but he is a man, he's a male who did these things. So if you say this is toxic masculinity, I'd be like, yeah, sure, it is. But now if you look at the aggression that the father enacted, I think that embodies what a lot of us feel. That's why a lot of people prefer to look at microaggressions, because if you focus on this kind of evil in the world and you're unable to actually do what this father wanted to do and just lash out and physically do something about it, it may be easier for you to focus on microaggressions and make you feel like you have the power to change you in these huge evils, which unfortunately are still with us. But if you know much about the history of humans, and especially how children were treated, it's actually getting much, much better. It's actually, like you see, like in Uganda, I know the law does not necessarily mean it's going to be followed by everyone, as you can see with these Pokot women. A lot of things that were legal in the United States of America just a few years ago, 10, 20, half a century ago, segregation, things like that, even though some people are bringing it back. But yes, I think the government does not necessarily start things. They normally jump onto things once the people are going that way. So for you to get to a situation where it's like, yes, we're making this illegal to do, that probably means society is already kind of like, yeah, we don't really want to do this anymore. Can somebody else do something about it? Then the government's like, yeah, we're doing something about that. So let me not digress too much. This is a situation where toxic masculinity in this doctor, and then what the father did, is also another example of something that is part of masculinity. He behaved in this way in reaction to what somebody else did. And I think this is an aspect of positive masculinity. Even if it is aggression, aggression in and of itself is not necessarily a negative thing. And I think with all these things, you kind of think about the reproduction that goes in. I think in a lot of situations, you're not really going to understand how humans work or how things work in general if you don't really think, how does this help this creature or culture or group of living beings reproduce? Because I think we're all kind of focused on that. So this reaction that this father had to the attack on his progeny, on his children, is due to a reproductive instinct, first to have the children, and then to create as positive and safe a world for those children as possible. Same thing with these Pokot women. Even though they kind of think that, hey, this might be something where it's going to lessen the ability for our kids to reproduce if we don't circumcise them, if we don't mutilate their genitals, because they make up these reasons like, yeah, these evil gods are going to come and curse our kid if they don't do that. It's actually in the story. I don't know if I can actually find that story, but yeah. So finishing up, language is important. It changes how we view the world. It changes how others view what we're trying to say to them. It's kind of like the whole art thing. Does art imitate the world, or does life imitate art? And language is an art form. Not just writing literature, but even itself, the letters themselves were formed, I think, as pictograms to represent things. So you're representing what you're talking about here. And I think it's important. And some of these changes in language are not necessarily bad things. Some curse words, just 50 years ago in most places, you'd say that if somebody like killed your mom or something. You'd say that. Now somebody drops their pencil or something minor, they say that same word, and then, no, it's nothing. It's just something that person says. The meaning of the word changes, the severity of it. So when it comes to something like Justin Trudeau doing this whole change of things to become more inclusive, and that's inclusive of the two genders, because instead of mankind, he wants to add woman to that, and maybe hermaphrodites. But I don't really think anyone truly believes that whole rainbow, not even rainbow, like multitude of genders thing, but that's for another situation. But coming back to this, so he's trying to be inclusive of women in that situation. Not necessarily a bad thing. I don't necessarily see how women are left out, especially when you're talking about mankind. It's just a small word and things like that. It's a micro issue at most. And women in the West are arguably the most well-off and protected class that has ever existed in humanity. But let's say you are doing that. You can prove there's certain things, there's certain women out there that are truly excluded. And if we say people kind, or we don't use mankind, we say humanity instead of just saying, again, peoplety or something. We just say something else. Homo sapiens, maybe. We say Homo sapien kind. And then that maybe makes people picture everyone who's affected by these issues. If you make that argument, then why isn't that argument taken to things like the female genital mutilation thing? Why don't you say child genital mutilation? Because if an adult does it, if you decide to go out and cut the foreskin off your penis, or if you're a woman and you decide to cut a breast off, even if you don't have cancer, that's not necessarily considered mutilation. Even if you wanted to add stuff, let's say you wanted to get augmentation, that's breast augmentation. Now if you did that to a child, I think there would be issues there too. So you can see that the issue here is it's happening to a child, it's happening to somebody who didn't select to do this. So what if you just change the situation to CGM, child genital mutilation, or IGM, infant genital mutilation? Wouldn't that get to a situation where you can actually include boys into this, protect more people, if that's the case of being inclusive and things like this? But you don't see that from them. Another place this shows up is with parenting. It's been shown in many studies that females tend to hit their children at a lot higher rate than males do. Now, this is also accounted for the fact that females are with the kids at a lot higher rates than males are. But that's not called toxic parenting, or let alone toxic femininity. And again, for this, I would like to prescribe consistency. Not because I actually think they'll change and actually start holding people accountable equally across the board, women to men and men to women, But the very fact that if you are consistent with this, that's how you find out that this is a utopian vision that actually can't realistically be achieved. So that's it for the video. Like, share, and subscribe. There's going to be links below to the merchandise store, like the ones you can see on the screen right now. I just opened a Patreon today. I'm still figuring out the tiers for different donation levels. I'll let you guys know about that. There's going to be links below to some memes of Justin Trudeau. And also, if I can find that report about the Pokot tribe, I shall link that below. Thanks. Goodbye.